All right. We're good now.
I'm proud of you, Wendy. I love you. You're an amazing pioneer. Thank you.
Thank you. Geez, same with everyone here. I'm going to take you all in, and including those that are here but not on the recording. There's about 20, some of us in the group so far, so
awesome.
That's a really nice size. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do on each of these calls, but we will work that out as we go. And today there are a few things that actually came to me that I want to kind of share, setting the stage as we get going. And actually, I'm just going to change my view here. Oh, that's better. Okay. You know, you see all these different views of people and that. Maybe you guys know more than I do. And there's also a chat function. Maybe you know this already, Grace.
There's a chat function, but that it tends to get distracting. I do this on another thing.
Yeah.
When people are in the chat box, yeah, you can chat to someone individually, or you can make a chat to everyone.
Yeah.
But it does.
It's distracting.
Follow. Yeah.
Now I have been.
There's the mute button down in the left corner that you can mute yourself if you're moving around, or if you have to go get a drink of water, you can just hit the stop video. Did you go over that all already?
No. In fact, I think what I'd like to do, if there's just like about this number of us, I would love to leave. I have the option to mute all of you, but I would rather not. If, like as Grace said, if we can sort of police ourselves and put ourselves on mute, it's just so much nicer to be interactive. But we'll see how that goes. You also, as you know, have the option to have your video on or off, as do I. So
now I want to say something about the chat. I've been on many Zoom calls, some with hundreds or thousands of people and some with a small group. And we found, you know, with the thousands, the chat is going constantly. And some people are there and they really aren't paying that much attention to the presenter. But the advantage in a small group like this, on occasion, one of us on small group calls had a technical problem and we can't be heard or seen. And then if we can post in the chat, hey, my audio's not working, any suggestions, that can be really helpful. So I just wanted to mention those two distinctions in case they're valuable.
That's great. And Elke's here, and we can also send a private message to Elke just to. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thanks, and thanks for bringing your experience with this because it's new to me.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else anybody wants to add about from your experience working with Zoom in the past? Grace is Ron, do you go by Zenzo?
You know, just so everybody knows, my legal name is Ron. And Wendy's known me as Ron for probably 20 years or so. And my spiritual name is Zensho, and you can call me either way, whatever you prefer.
Okay, great.
Because my Facebook handle is Zensho Gabriel, I didn't want to get a new Facebook handle for this call or whatever. So.
Okay. So I thought today, like the purpose of this immersion group, as you know, is to take the materials as we move through them over the next 15 months of the Big Brain Change program, which many of you, I think, were in as the 6-month coaching group program. And week by week, we'll take those materials, you'll be able to apply them in your lives, and we'll come here and we'll talk about them and really bring them home. We'll be able to help you really use them in a way that moves you forward in the way that you want to move forward. But to set the stage for that, I thought today I would just share a little bit of, I guess it's a model in a way of how I see who we are as we gather here and what we're doing. Because I think for most of us, besides having intentions that we have for our lives, things we want to experience, maybe out there or change, most of us are here because we want to experience ourselves in new ways and interact with the world in ways that are much more powerful and wonderful and interactive and interwoven with everything than we ever have in the past. And just this morning, actually, a way of talking about that came to me that I just want to share with you. It's very simple. I don't know what to call it, but it's an image I just drew that kind of looks like one of those little dryer balls. You know, those things you put in your dryer and they have little bumps all over the end of the whole outside of them. So if you can picture this thing I've drawn here is just like the 2D version of it, but bumps all the way around. So who I think I am is this little point of consciousness here. I'm this person, me. And so when I look at all your different screens, you know, this is Donna, this is Deb, this is Sandra, Julia, and so on. We each look to each other like we are these separate points, and we interact as though we are those separate points. But every single one of us
You don't think he's on the way because he's...
What's that?
Oh, sorry.
But every single one of us has the depth of all of consciousness. So we actually are all the same me underneath. Oh, are you guys hearing me okay? Yeah, okay. And
Wendy?
Wendy, every now and then we can't hear you because whoever's on a phone 173466 is making a lot of background noise. This is one thing about Zoom. If there's somebody making a lot of noise when the main speaker is talking, it's harder to hear the main speaker. So I'd like that individual to mute if you can, please.
yeah, I did that.
And Wendy, this is Elka. I would like to remind you, did you press recording?
I did, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. Okay. Do I need to go over that again, or did you guys get that?
I got it.
Got it.
Ding. You know what, maybe just during this point, I will just, oh no, I don't want to mute myself. We're good, we'll just keep going. So the way that we have come to talk about it in the 6-month coaching program, and we will now as you go through the materials again in the Big Brain program, is that we have these two perspectives all the time on what's going on. And our left brain is way out at this tip of ourselves, this tip of our consciousness, and experiences us as this little individual that we feel is separated off from the whole. But at the same time, our right brain is experiencing the exact same moment from the perspective of everything, of being part of that whole, of having stability and certainty and information and intelligence and connection and solidness, so that no matter what's going on out at the tip here, in what seems to be my individual world, there's this incredible underlying foundation of joy and freedom and wholeness and continuity that can be present, that actually is present there all the time. And I think for all of us here, and I think for everyone in the world, what we crave when we crave anything is more and more of this, so that no matter what's going on, you know, out here on the tip of my life, I have all of this supporting me so that my experience of every moment can just be so rich and satisfying and full. And does that sound about right?
I really get it, and I love the beautiful diagram. It simplifies it so much. I've been puzzled many times why it is that for the first number of decades in my life, there was complete unconsciousness about the deeper, the true being, the wholeness. And then there started to be awakenings into that ecstatically peaceful world and the serenity of it. And so I've concluded, yes, it's always here, but what the heck, how come for myself and almost everybody I know, most of the time, it's been completely obscured. I have my own theory about that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Okay, let me move on to this next little piece, which takes, so this diagram, and this is me up here, or you. So let's just blow that up. So here I am, this is me, and this is my connection to all that is, to everything else that's me. So the way that I think of this, the way I understand it, and the way the in deeper process works with it is that at any given point in time, there's a point at which I identify myself as only this. So this is, I think this is me, and I think this is other. And so every time, and this often is, and so there's these are definitions, but they're also vibrational or energy states that seem to separate me from everything else. So for example, let's say I identify myself as somebody who had this thing happen, or I'm somebody who has this personality trait. So if I identify myself as that, then I'm just sort of living out on the tip here, and everything that is, I'm not related to myself as the person who does not have that trait or that quality. Does that make sense? So if you can think of a way that you identify yourself as I am someone who, in a way that doesn't feel good to you, but do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Something. I'm just someone who is of a certain age, or had this thing happen, or is in this financial situation, or has this health condition. The thing, that's one experience, but you actually are the consciousness that does not have that quality as well. That's beyond that. And the thing that separates us, the identified part, from the part that is beyond that, or is already on the other side of that, is a feeling state. It's a vibrational state. And so, for example, does anybody have an example of what just came to mind for you that we could actually just briefly use?
I think for me, it's always some level of fear, whatever the fear is.
Okay.
Fear of not enough, or fear of.
Okay, that's great, Wendy.
And you're not necessarily aware of it, but the society promotes.
Okay, Wendy, it's hard to hear you.
Pretty much anything. Yeah.
It's hard to hear you, Wendy, but I think what I got was just identifying yourself as someone who has fear and some specific fears. And so
yeah, my voice is only going to.
That's fine. You gave me everything that we need. So, for example, as Wendy's talking about her fear, she's sitting out here as an individual that has her specific situation and her specific sort of emotional or vibrational patterns that are unique to her. But the other really cool thing about being human is that, I'm going to go back to this one, so that Wendy has this particular thing that she just described, which if she was able to just sort of sense the feeling of that, and how permanent that seems, and how much just a part of her personality that seems, she would be able to use the in deeper process just to sort of have that layer evaporate, and suddenly she would experience herself as somebody that doesn't have that anymore. So her sense of her own identity would expand further out. But the other cool thing about working in a group like this, or just us humans in general, is that there's always, that is a common pattern to all of us. Every single one of us, what part of what makes up the structure of, if you call this our personality, this is what I think makes me me, that deep down here, sort of at the point at which we think we're human, we all have the same vibrational structural patterns. So every single human being knows what it's like to be afraid, or every single one of us knows what it's like to feel separate from everyone else. And so in this, thank you for that example, Wendy, by the way, that's a great one. But the thing that excites me actually about working together here with all of you is that even as we're working with one person, possibly, if we're working with their situation or whatever, there's always the underlying structure that's common to all of us. And so we can use what's going on for any single person to find our place in us where that same vibrational pattern or line of separation exists. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so the other great thing actually about, so we're going to do that a lot. So I think what we're going to do a lot on these calls is just practice like finding those feeling states in ourselves and working with them, because the thing, okay, because that's going to be really useful. Just let me end that there. So we're going to do a little bit of that. We're going to probably do a lot of that. Two more points I want to make related to that. I hope I don't forget the second one. So the first one is that the really cool thing about understanding quantum physics and working with ourselves in this way that includes understanding and reading situations as vibration, as well as sort of matter and all that stuff, is that there's only ever one now moment. There's only ever now, right? This now, this now, this now. And if you trust that your life is understands your intentions, understands who you are, understands who you want to become, understands where you're going, and understands the path that will meet you where you are and take you to the next step, you can always trust that what's going on in your life right in this moment is the thing that is most useful for you to take the next step. So right now, it's amazing. Here we are, us. Every single one of us is on the cusp of some sort of movement forward, movement deeper into ourselves to claim more of the part of our consciousness, the more of all that is actually us on the other side of something that we think is a barrier between us and that. And this moment right now is whatever's going on in you, the conversation that's going on, the words that are coming out of somebody's mouth, is the very thing that is your larger self, your right brain, consciousness, all that is invitation to move into that. And so all we really ever have to do is sort of watch our own reactions to things, our own feelings about things, and just to learn to stay present to those and just allow those to shift us and soften and accept and be. And that's why, you know, the in deeper process is not the only way of dissolving these boundaries between me and what I think is not me. But it's such a good technique because what it does is trains you to be sensitive all the time, not just to what you're hearing or seeing, but to what you're sensing. True?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so even just now, if you stop, you should see how beautiful your faces are. Because you just feel, right? The truth of that, the potential that's here, the sense of community that's here, right? And so your mind wants to follow my words and make sense of it, maybe, but the rest of you is actually speaking those words. So see, even just as we sit here and you just be present to those, whatever this is that's, uppermost as a sensation in you. Take awareness to it. Just let it be there. Love it. This is amazing. Whatever it is, we don't have to know what it is. And as you give intention for that to dissipate, to dissolve, to expand, to be, to stay, to go, what you're doing is exploring this incredible miracle that's the construction of you. That in whatever way you've defined it has just been like this little tip. But all of this is just inviting you to know more of you. And there's no end. There's no end to what you'll discover that you are. Yeah. So, this was the other thing I wanted to say. Because I want to talk just a little bit about the study results that I got and what it means in terms of this very fancy dryer ball model. There's probably something better. What's like round and prickly all around? I don't know.
That's perfect.
You like dryer ball? All right.
Yes,
I think a prickly pear cactus is sort of round and
Too prickly pear cactus, a little more natural.
like the fruit.
Yes. Or those little like amoeba things. Anemones. See anemones?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, so with the 6-month coaching program, Big Brain Change program, what we started with was individuals coming on with an intention. I want to experience this by the end of the 6 months. And so the approach was to use all of this concept of being able to shift states in order to just sort of move into reality where that is what we're living. And I know it works. The interesting thing, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about some of the summary and the interpretation of that, because some of you were part of that. So I thought initially it would be really straightforward, right? It'd just be a direct measure. You said you wanted this to happen. Did it happen? Sort of yes or no. But that's not what happened. And the way I think of that now is initially a lot of people came in with sort of tangible things that they wanted, right? I want this to be happening in my life. But then that changed. And so, for example, here's the analogy, another analogy I came up with this morning, is that it's like if somebody was drowning and what they said was, what I want is water wings, right? I just want water wings so I can float. Definitely want water wings. Definitely want, I just want to be able to stay on the surface of the water. My intention is to have water wings. And so that was at the beginning. This is what I want. This is my intention, to have water wings. But then as you do this work, you start to discover, wait, I can swim, right? I can swim. I can float. The water supports me. I can go over here, I can go over there, I can do somersaults. And so after a period of time, this is what happened for a lot of people, was just that all of a sudden it didn't, wait, I wanted water wings? No, I don't, and so there was this incredible process of people shifting from an external thing that they wanted, but then doing the work so that it was like, well, I don't really identify with my body in the same way anymore. I don't judge it anymore. So it's not as important to me that I lost the weight or whatever it was. And this was an incredible thing that I noticed happening when I was looking at the results, was that so much of the external desire shifted to so much appreciation, desire for more internal states. And okay, this is where this comes in now as we go through all this material again, is that one of the things I wasn't able to understand was how is it that determines what results you get, let's say. And I think the key is that the farther and farther, it has to do with how you identify yourself. So if I think I'm just this little human being out here with all these limitations in myself, I don't have a whole lot of power to influence matter. So if I think I'm like a small human being and trying to exert influence on my body or a situation, matter doesn't work very well on matter. So the important thing is to increasingly change your identification, to shift from being, I think primarily of myself as this human being moving through life, to I primarily identify myself as consciousness itself, awareness itself. And Joe Dispenza, who I discovered, maybe as you know, in the last 6 months, would say, you can't affect matter with matter, but it's so much easier to affect energy or with consciousness. So when you identify yourself as consciousness itself, then energy is the vehicle through which you manipulate. And that's, I think, what we're here to do, because the power of influence you have over the external world, when you don't think primarily that you are the external world, that you don't primarily think you are a body, that's where all the leverage is, and that's where the magic is. And the one thing I don't know quite yet is how to measure where you are in that process. Do you know what I mean? Like at any point in time, like sitting there right now, it's like, well, wait, where am I? Where am I? Right?
I have an idea on that. I don't know if it's appropriate to interject right now.
Just give me a minute, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah, I would love to hear your idea. So the thing that I think happens, and maybe we'll be saying the same thing, Ron, is that every single time you're present to a moment and witnessing the sensations or feelings that you have about that moment, it's like you're moving this little marker that differentiates you, where you stop and everything else begins, a little further and further back. And I think what the materials that we're going to be going through does, and what it demonstrated for people, is just their sense of identity, your sense of identity, just keeps moving back further and further. And so you have so much greater sense of being big, part of everything, less identified with the external things and much more identified with internal states. And so I can see that what we would do, if this is of interest to you during the time that we're together, is just to keep finding those places in you where that line of differentiation is, where you think you stop and everything else begins, and just continually move that back. because all of you is here inviting you, pulling you into that in each moment. That line of separation is always there. So thoughts? Yes, Ron.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was going to just say, I've noticed when the degree of present moment conscious awareness is higher, that's the measure, because sometimes there's a slipping back 100% into the old familiar identity and caught up in the thoughts, and it feels like a problem. This feels so real, and oh my God, how am I going to handle it? And then at the other extreme, at the deepest level, it's been literally, this may sound weird, but this is what it feels like. That there literally is not and never has been anyone really separate from anything else or anyone else. And it's just like this extraordinary peace and presence. And it's just like that awakened consciousness is just watching this body and this mind moving through the world, but not taking any of it personally. That's the way that measurement has gotten more and more clear over the years, over in this package.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like, for anybody else hearing that, if you haven't had that experience, all your mind can do is compare it to something that you've already experienced, or you can imagine what that would be like. You might go, I don't know if I'd like that or not. But every time you move deeper into that experience, it's like, you just feels like becoming more of yourself, becoming more of me. Would you say that, Ron?
Yeah, it's like becoming more of truth. For me, right or wrong is not the way to look at it, but for me, it's just like the sense of the only me is this wholeness, and the other one has been like the other sense of me as a separate somebody has been like I call it a projection onto the wholeness, and that the consciousness has been taking this projection personally and not realizing, oh, this projection is this one whole, pure, indivisible consciousness projecting the sense of a separate me onto the whole one me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And even see if it doesn't make sense, if you just sort of feel, what you're feeling as Ron's speaking, it's beautiful.
One thing I was going to share that's,
Yeah.
I haven't talked to anybody else who's experienced this, is I have feelings that I've never had before, if that makes sense. Like, you have feelings, they come, you recognize them. Like you had said, you compare it to other things, you recognize it. But I've had emotions that I don't recognize, that I've never had before, that are almost dreamlike. It's like, this must be from another reality, because I've never experienced this before. So that's kind of fun.
That's new for you, I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yum.
It is. It's very yummy.
Well, in our culture, we have so little language about emotions in general, right? When you think about the number of emotions, the number of words we use to describe emotions, it's like 8. Angry, sad, embarrassed, jealous, afraid. There's so few, but there's incredible nuances, right? Like, and I think the more that we allow ourselves to experience our emotions, the more language and the more terms we then use to describe them. And then the more we have a way of communicating that, like, words make situations something, right? So even if just, in yourself going, do I feel jealous and, regretful? Or like just being able to tease some of that out helps us expand our ability to recognize that range that's there. But that would be pretty cool, Deb, if you even I think that's wonderful. I can't imagine what that's like, but I want some of that.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Just it always happens and when you're not expecting it and you just come upon it. And I don't even try to label it, honestly. I just think, oh my gosh, I just want to experience this. And it's pretty fast, you know, it's kind of come and goes pretty fast, but yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Wonderful.
Wendy, can I add something to that?
I hope you will.
I think I'm relating to what you're saying. Well, in my way, is like I find myself just happy for no reason whatsoever, and that's a new emotion. It's like there's always some drag to something. It's like I could be happy that I'm going to be doing something with a friend, for instance, but then I'll be thinking, oh, but I should be doing blah blah blah, or that means I'm going to spend XYZ money, or some thought about it. But now, since I've gone through this program, what I'm noticing as a different kind of emotion is, oh, I'm happy about everything. Everything is, and it's not always, it does come and go, but I just find myself in that place of just being. And there's great happiness and peace and tranquility in the midst of all that. So that's been my big takeaway from the whole program so far. And I love the way that you're explaining the ball. I have a couple of those. And it to me, in my mind, it's a perfect analogy of what we're trying to put into some sort of framework so that we can really truly understand what this is all about. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I love this. I love this feeling of just being in bliss.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing I find about that too is just the less I try and take it personally, the more, like, so for example, I was starting to say before I came on the call, all of a sudden I just felt tearful. And in the past, I was like, I would try and figure out why is that, what is it about me that's, why am I tearful? But instead, I just let the sensation be that sensation. Now, oftentimes I'll just go, oh, that's just an aspect of, the energy that's present. Maybe that's and just to enjoy my connection to all that is as a result of what's presenting itself to me through my apparatus that's able to read energy, right? To read emotion, that we have this incredible apparatus, just like eyes can see, but receptors that can sense energy waves. And maybe, Deb, there are all kinds of colors and all kinds of emotions that are just waiting for us to be able to tune into as we get more willing to put our attention there and to sense whatever it is that we're sensing without labeling it immediately. Anyone else want to say anything?
Hopefully you can hear me. I know going through this, there's been a lot of times like those energy chunks in my body, whatever they are, they come up and I have no idea what they are, but they come up, I can let them go. I feel so much. I feel lighter, both physically and emotionally, than when I started last year. And I'm kind of like Donna, like I'm just happy. I'm not worried about the next moment. I go out with a friend. The first thought isn't anymore like, oh my God, this could cost me this much money, or whatever. It's when my husband first died 5 years ago, I was living with just a ball of fear in my stomach. I was just in a knot all the time. And I look back at that, and especially this last year, and it's gone. And I feel so much more just supported and connected, and I find that the more I feel that,
Wendy, I think we got the gist of it.
I seem to get, I have friends that'll give me this little thing or that little thing, or I need a car for to do my photography road trips in, and yeah. But anyway, like, things are coming to me more than they did because I'm more open to it, and I'm not blocking it with fear of not having it, I think, is the core of it.
Sounds wonderful. I think we maybe got about 3/4 of that, and it all sounded good, and it all makes me feel so happy for you that you were able to, find that within yourself, and always there will be the invitation to find more. Beautiful. Anybody else want to speak? No.
Yes.
Is there anything?
Yes.
Somebody going to say something? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say I also lost a lot of thinking and praying in the process. And also I can feel your love and your gratefulness to do all this in a way and be the connector. It's kind of really nice. Thanks for holding that space.
Mm-hmm. Well, it feels really good for me too, right? Imagine knowing this stuff, living it, and having nobody that's interested in it too. It would be the worst. So for me, this is like this being with you, who are also eager to know more and to learn more and to feel more in your own very specific and important ways, is deeply satisfying, and it's what my own journey in life has brought me towards, because so it's so good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let me just see. Is there anybody that has we still have like at least 10 minutes?
I have something.
Yeah.
Thinking of. So the biggest struggle that I have with this is that I try to get into it, and then somehow I get distracted. I don't know if anybody else has that issue where I've got this and I'm going to feel into it, and then I go over here and do something else. That's what I'm hoping from this group, is that I can really, get concentrated time and, be able to spend more quality time doing this process, because I just feel like when I'm on my own, I can't concentrate long enough, or maybe the emotion goes away and I just do something else. I don't know. But anyway, that's my wish at the moment.
Fantastic. I think that's really it's a common thing, and I have a couple thoughts on it, but has anybody else, I'd be interested first to hear from anybody else about what it is that has helped you, if that was a problem for you in the past before. And the other thing is that once we post this as a recording, we'll have it in the Facebook group, and there's people that'll be listening that will be able to say, that will be able to contribute to this conversation as well. But does anybody have a suggestion of what's more for you?
I still use your recording.
Use the recording?
I love the first one that you released. Yeah, the recording. Like, what if it doesn't happen. And I'll use that one a lot. I use it to keep me focused and kind of take me through it. I like that it has the entire in deeper process. So that's sort of my trick.
Sure.
I saved them all. So
and you're definitely not alone in that. Just there are a lot of people that just do it when they have the guided recording to listen to. Anyone else? Just when do you know when to do it, and how do you stay with it?
Okay, 3 things. I mean, Deb, my distraction also has been a challenge over the years. So 3 things I found that are helpful. One, I make sure, the phone's off and, messaging on the computer's off. And sometimes if there's really loud sounds in the environment, change somebody cutting down trees or doing a lawn, and that's distracting, then I put on my sound canceling headphones. When the distraction is really strong, I just get up and I just shake my body, jump up and down a bit, sort of work out some of the built up energy that's involved with this repressed charge. Often it's been also helpful to drink a lot of water because I'm dehydrated, and that sort of stabilizes my own energy field, gives me more concentration. Those are the main things that come to mind that I've experimented with and found helpful.
Yeah, I think those are all good ideas. I guess, and I agree, when you sit down and you listen, it's a lot easier. It's when I'm in a moment and I'm thinking, okay, I've got this emotion and now I want to deal with it. And that's when I deal with it for like 3 seconds and then I'm forget what I'm doing. That's
Been there, done that.
Maybe 3. One is actually like the intensity of an emotion. As you bring awareness to it, it dissipates. So there's less emotion, there's less charge to draw your attention to it. It's kind of like if it looked like, if this is the emotion as a cone, and as you feel down into it, there's just less there. And so it's easy for your mind to start to wander, especially when you get down to say like the last 2% of it. And yet it's that last 2% that really lets you like feel the whole thing just lift off. Sometimes what I'll do is speak it out loud, because if like whatever I'm feeling, I'll put it into words, because the act of saying, I feel angry, I feel like, just talking out loud actually increases the intensity of it and helps you stay focused on it. So just to sort of talk through exactly what I'm feeling, and then at the same time keeping the emotion in my awareness. Anyone, anything else? It's funny because for me, it just always was immediately so inviting to me. I got it right away about how important it was to work through that. So it always comes up as this immediately. This is more important than anything else to me, is just to, recapture more of myself in this moment. So staying with it always has just been natural to me. But I know a lot of people have a different experience. Some people will have made it part of like, just they'll do it once a day, like in the morning when they get up, they'll think ahead to their day, and then that's their time just to devote to feeling. And in a way, it's almost like a meditation, right? You're sitting, you're just got single-minded focus on sensations and sensing and moving. It's beautifully relaxing even as you're doing it. So
I know this is going to be really helpful. This group and redoing everything is going to be really helpful. It's just nice to hear people talk. It's nice to get different perspectives. It's nice to hear other people's experiences, and so it's all helpful.
The other thing I was going to say just to watch for is that as you move into like certain amount of that feeling, you may actually encounter a slightly different layer of sensation in that feeling. So for example, that then makes you check out. So for example, maybe you are sensing something and you're like, okay, here I am. And then there's a layer of it that is just difficult for you to be with. And so you may then, rather than stay with that particular layer of the feeling, you're just like, I'm done, I'm out of here. So if you catch yourself kind of avoiding it, really be interested in what's going on energetically inside you that is making it easier to avoid that exact sensation right then and there, than to be present to it. Because sometimes what happens is they'll all of a sudden like have something that feels like it flares all over the place and feels like twisty or overwhelming or something like that. Anyway, try that.
Yeah,
Just get super
I know what
into
you're talking. I know what you're talking about. That sounds. I like that. Make a note of that.
Good. Okay. Any last comments? Oh gosh, there's probably something I should say. Oh, here, let's do this. One word just to sum up how you feel right now. One word. You can either put it in the chat, you can say it, you can be quiet and just feel it.
Appreciation.
Mm.
Together.
Mm.
Joyous.
Mm.
Grateful.
Present.
Full. I feel full.
I really feel it from everyone. It's awesome.
Yeah. And I see Wendy's written grateful there. Beautiful. And maybe others will chime in later. So thank you so much. Oh, what a great kickoff. And we'll see you again 2 weeks from today and in the Facebook group if you are taking part in that. And I will post this recording and make it available. But yes, carry on being awesome.
Thank you.
Bye. Ah.